No man is more professional than I. I am a 1% man. I am not above or below any man. I'm training my mind. I'm building my body. I'm connecting to my soul. I'm investing my money. Welcome to the 1% Man podcast. Let's go. On this computer. All right, perfect. So what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 1% Man podcast. I have Kyle Depiesse here with me. Kyle, my man, and I said his name right, so that's even more.
You got it, man. Everyone just destroys that name, so just 100% there, man. Good to start off that way. I'm happy to be here, brother. I'm excited to jump in.
Appreciate it. So just give you guys a little feedback. So I know how me and Kyle met, right? So me and Kyle haven't really met. This is our first time actually meeting officially, but I heard his story on another podcast, and the minute I heard his story, I was like, I had to have him on. He paid off $400K worth of debt. So, and you guys know, I always say, money is super important in starting out, not mindset. I think mindset is BS. And I think money is the first thing you need to do. But before we begin, I want Kyle to tell us a little more about himself. So I'm going to ask him a couple questions so we can get started. You guys can get to know him. So Kyle, starting off, what's your favorite color?
Oh, man. So I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it's the Wisconsin Badgers, and they're red. So I'm going to go with red.
Red? Okay.
Yep.
Dope. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Deep dish pizza, pepperoni, and sausage for sure. Probably from Green Mill.
Chicago style?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody, you have to know this. When you eat Chicago style pizza, you have to eat it with a knife and fork too as well.
Yes.
You can't eat it with your hands.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
No.
So that's a true pizza. When people talk about deep dish, they're like, yeah, that's I'm like, no, it's not. If you can eat it with your hands, it's not deep dish.
That's right.
So Kyle, what is your favorite moment this year?
Ooh, okay. So my wife Lois and I have a 3-year-old, and his name is Cal, short for Callahan. And we have been trying on several occasions to potty train him, and we finally got him potty trained. So
nice.
Favorite moment for sure was when he did his business in his little toilet in the bathroom. I was so pumped. I mean, unless you're a parent, you might not understand how impactful that is and powerful, but that was by far the best moment this year.
Nice. I love it. And I know this kind of ties in back to this experience as well, but for you as a man, what do you say is your number one like value or quality that you hope to exude or lead and give to others?
Oh man, that is a really good question. I would probably say, I'm going to kind of tie it into my strength. One of my top strengths is discernment, which is really kind of the ability to feel out a situation and to feel how someone else is feeling. And it gives me a really good sense to take the pulse of maybe of a room and people in a room or a conversation you're having one-on-one. And I think that's really important because then it allows me to show empathy when empathy is needed. It allows me maybe to give someone, because I'm also a coach, so it allows me to give someone a little bit of tough love if they need some tough love and coach them up. So that to me is really important because it then shows me how I need to react and act to people in order to give them either the best feedback, the best conversation, the best podcast like we're about to do. It really helps me understand how to interact in a group setting.
I love that. I think discernment is super important. I think, do you think there's a way to build up discernment, or do you think that's just like a natural spiritual gift? Or do you think that's just that's something that someone could actually build?
I think it's both. I think it's a natural gift, number one, but number two, you can work on it. And so most people, when they are listening, they're listening because all they want to do is they want to say something. So if you really listen for the purpose of listening, like truly listen to someone, you can really discern how they're feeling. But if all you're doing is listening and waiting for your turn to talk, it's not going to work. So I just challenge people to really, truly listen.
I love that. So, Kyle, and I'm listening because I listen to your podcast a little bit.
Nice. Okay.
So, tell me this. How did you get started in having $400K worth of debt? Was this like a one-time like bad decision, or was this like a big thing that just kind of got out of hand?
Multiple decisions. So you'd have to rewind the clock, rewind the tape all the way back to the last great recession of 2008, 2009.
Yes.
I mean, I'm completely financially illiterate, not educated. I was not seeking out mentors, wasn't seeking out counsel, wasn't reading about it, wasn't doing podcasts were a thing, but I wasn't doing my research to become educated financially. So when you're in that space and you operate from a place of ego, you make a lot of bad decisions, man. And so I had cashed out my retirement at that time. I bought gold, which was just an awful idea. You know, you're supposed to buy low, sell high. I bought high and sold low. And those were, I mean, these are just, it's mistake after mistake after mistake. And then all of a sudden you're looking at your situation and you're like, what happened? How did I get here? And so that's what I would say. I mean, you can wander into debt really, really easily. You can also just sign a piece of paper and you've got a mortgage for $250,000 just like that. So it's a combination of both. It's really bad decisions over a period of time. And then we also had a mortgage in there. So it's both. Oh, man.
Okay. Got you. So, and then what was that moment that made you say, you know what, I have to change. I got to do better. Was it like a one moment? There was something that happened, like a certain event, like experience that you went through and you were just like, wow, I'm totally out of hand. Or was it something that was just like, you just woke up one day and the stars just aligned, and that discernment hit you? So what was it for you?
Brilliant question. And this is really important to understand. And so anyone who's listening, I would encourage you maybe to jot this down. But I don't, as humans, I don't think we change until we're forced to change. And a lot of times that happens as a result of a tremendous amount of emotion or trauma or something that happens. And for me, in our story, this was it, right? So most people don't know this, but you can go on to the Social Security website, which is just ssa.gov.
Oh, yes.
And what you do is you log in, you use your Social Security number, obviously, you create a profile, and then it's designed to project your Social Security income in retirement. But it does that off of calculating your lifetime earnings. Yeah. I didn't know that. So when I log on, I saw that, and I'm in my mid-30s at this point, and I look at it, Bertrand, and I'm like, I made over $1 million. Where did it all go? I have nothing to show for it. And then I of course I called my wife Lois and I was like, Lois, babe, what's your Social Security number? I'm going to look up yours as well. And she had made about the same. So together we had made well over $2 million. And I'm like, dude, where'd it go? None of it. We don't have anything. In fact, we're negative $400,000 in debt. And so for me, that's a turning point because I hit the emotions of anger, frustration. I felt shamed. I felt guilty. All of these emotions come up and I say, man, where is it all? What I've done has gotten me to where I've gotten. If I want something different, I've got to do something different. So that was the turning point.
Wow. And I appreciate you sharing that story because I did the same thing. And I looked on there. I've made over 106, right? 106K. And now granted, I'm only 28, right? I'm not in my mid 30s yet, but if I would have checked it then, but I was like, where did all my money go?
I know.
Like what happened? And I'm looking back now and I'm like, man, I see where I spent all my money, but looking back. So talk to me a little bit, now that you looked it up, you saw, your wife made $1 million, you made $1 million. Now what was that next step that you took officially to go onto this path now?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a second, but I want to just address anyone who's thinking, but I haven't made $1 million yet. So I'm just going to tune this Kyle guy out. I don't even know how to say his last name, but I'm going to tune him out. So don't do it yet because the average income for a household in America is around like 60, 65,000.
Yes.
If you work at that for 14 years, that's it. 14 years, you will have made $1 million. So if you haven't got to $1 million and you're listening and you're going to tune me out, don't do it yet because now is the perfect time for you to be intentional with money. And so here's how you do that. So let's get to your question then. So what I did was I took a huge dose of humble pie and I said, okay, what I've done has gotten me here. It's got to change because clearly I don't know how to manage money. I need help. So I looked up a bunch of resources, and we live in a day and age where you can find anything at the tip of your fingers. You can Google
Yes.
it, you can jump on YouTube. So all my research led me to Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University plan, which takes you through a series of what he calls baby steps, which are things you should do in certain orders to get to financial freedom. So that's what we did, and we did that through 38 months. The cool part was when we started the program, which would have been, we started literally on January 1st, 2016. When we started that, I was working and my wife was working. It's two incomes. And halfway through, or almost a third of the way through, I think, we had our son. And we decided that I would stay home for a season of life. And so we went from two incomes to one income. But the coolest part, because we were intentional with our money, is our total income doubled over that period of time. I can't explain why. I can't explain how. I'm a man of faith, so we believe that God blessed us in that. But there's something to be said about when you manage money well, you are given more to manage. Because most of us are, if you're listening, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, well, if I just made more money, I could get out of a debt. But then you have to ask yourself this question: why should you be given more money if you can't handle the money you've currently been given? And so for me, it was all about, man, I just need to get humble because I suck at managing money. I need to educate myself. And how we did that was following Dave Ramsey's plan.
Wow. So I just want to, kind of just, depack this a little bit. So first and foremost, humble pie. I think that's a great, some great food to eat, as men with our egos and that. But I also want to go into the situation of where you took that step back as from leading your household and financially to going to being the stay-at-home dad. That's what I'm guessing, right?
Yep.
Okay, so talk me through that piece of being that stay-at-home dad. What decision? Why did you say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to let my wife lead, financially? You know what I'm saying? I know that has to take a huge blow as well, to the ego. But what made you say, let me take that step back. Let me let her push ahead instead of reversing the role like we would traditionally do in society.
Yeah, it's countercultural. It's counter society right now. And, it's interesting because if you ever go to a social gathering and you people with you don't know, right? You're all standing in a circle and you're going around like, what's the question that everyone asks you?
What do you do?
What do you do for work? And so we're sitting in these social situations and I'm just thinking, I'm like, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me. Please don't ask me. And of course, the question gets to me. I'm like, darn it. Yep. I'm a stay-at-home dad. And when it goes one of two ways. One, people get super awkward and they try and change the topic really quickly. or people are like, man, that's really cool. I really admire that. So there's no in between. It's people they don't know how to handle it. So I first had to get really comfortable in those situations, which looks like me swallowing my pride and swallowing my ego. So you already mentioned that. You covered that. So second was, well, I was a teacher at that time. I was actually teaching high school business, personal finance. And my wife was in a job where she was almost 100% commissioned. And so we knew that, well, if we take my job off the table, off the books, it's not as big a salary as my wife's. And if I can take some of her workload, like things outside of work, like at home, if I can take some of those things, off of her shoulders and allow her to crush her work, we knew, because my wife is an incredibly hard worker, we knew that she would crush it. And she did. So for me, I had to mentally reframe, what does it mean to provide for my family right now? And I knew that it was just for a season of time. And if that's the case, if you knew that you had to make a sacrifice, and both my wife and I made a sacrifice, but if you look at a situation, you say to yourself, okay, in order to get ahead, I think we've got to take a step back here and make a sacrifice. Most people would say, yeah, I can do that for a season of life. And so that's how we kind of approached the situation. Is we said, it's not forever. It's just a season, and we can do anything for a season.
Wow. I think that's when you say a season, right? Please just go a little deeper in that. Tell us a little more, because I think when people hear seasons, they're thinking, oh, okay, that's like what, from summer to winter, from winter to
Yeah.
fall. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So for
Yep.
you, was your season, was that the full 38 months, or was that just maybe 24 months, 12 months? What does your season look like?
Yeah, it was closer to 24 months because there was a period when we started where I was still teaching, and so it was into the program, into our debt-free payoff program a little bit. So it was about 2 years, but within that 2 years, in the background, I am starting to develop what my next phase looks like, what my 2.0 career looks like, which is podcasting, which is entrepreneurship stuff, which is creating, programs and offerings around things I've learned. So I was
Yes.
starting to develop that in the background. I just wasn't generating revenue yet, but I knew that I would. So the season for us looked like 24 months, but in reality, it was probably a little bit closer to a year and a half because I was starting to do things in the background.
Mm. Okay. So I like that you said that you started to reframe what your life would look like. You started to plan for what your life would look like
Yeah.
after this was all said and done. So what was your biggest goal in that time? Just to pay it off, or was there something else that you attached to that payoff?
Mm.
And and also, it's kind of two part. What did you do after you paid everything off too?
Yeah. Well, we celebrated is the short answer for that.
Yeah.
But to answer that real quick, we actually went down to Dave Ramsey's studio in Tennessee, and we were live on his show, and we did our debt-free scream, which is, I'd encourage anyone to go Google it and find it, because our son, who was 2 at that time, just had a huge blowout diaper during our debt-free scream. And then while we did our debt-free scream with Dave Ramsey live, Cal, my son, started bawling his eyes out. So it was like a complete disaster. But anyway, so what we were doing was, during that time, I was starting to look at my story, and I was looking at the gifts and the talents and the strengths that I have. And I said, okay, let me connect the dots. And there's a way for me to teach what I'm learning to other people. And so while we're going through that debt-free journey and payoff, I was journaling a lot. I was meeting with a lot of different people and saying, here's what I'm learning. Here's what I think I can offer. Is there value in that to you? Mm-hmm. Just starting to really bounce the idea off of people, kind of like a little incubator or a little bit of a test, proof of concept, if people are familiar with that term. I was really looking at, how can I use my gifts, talents, and my story to make an impact on other people? And when I started to figure that out, that's really when we started to put some gasoline on the fire. And then I started to put offerings out that were really helpful to people.
Man. So you really took that time. You started to plan. You built your business off of your story and what you were able to overcome. And then you also got educated also too, as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, so most people think of this is why I like to call this season, because it was a season where I got to sow a lot of seeds into my son and be super intentional with him and our relationship, which is awesome. At the same time, it gave me the opportunity to hit the reset button in my professional life and say, all right, how can I relaunch myself coming out of this? How can I take this time that I have? I mean, kids when they're young, they sleep like 3 times a day. So what am I going to do? So I would sit, I'd read, I poured myself into John Maxwell books. I poured myself into personal development, and I really just said, how do I take this story and how do I make an impact on other people? And it's a beautiful intersection of all that stuff happening at once. So people might not be given the chance where you get a 24 months to stay home with a child and think about how you could relaunch a career. But there are still a lot of pockets in the day of every single living that people can still be intentional about this too. A lot of people were affected by coronavirus, like COVID, right? We're given this chance to reset, reflect, and maybe relaunch something into the future. So it's just a matter of how intentional you are with your time.
Man, I love intentionality with your time too as well. I'm taking notes
Yeah.
as we go. So I feel like I'm getting my own
Yeah.
coaching session right
Yeah.
here.
That's great, man.
So I want to ask right now, in terms of mindset blocks, right? For people when it comes to money, because if you're say, ages 25 to 35, you're starting out, you're making money, maybe not making a lot of money, right? You're probably not in commission, right? Um, how do you handle, transitioning and shifting into a more, and you're single, say, you're a single
Mhm.
guy. How do you transition to saying, okay, I'm gonna start paying off this debt?
Yeah. Good question. Because at that age, and again, so when I taught personal finance in high school, so that was a little bit younger than you asked, but as 18-year-olds, it is virtually impossible to get them excited about their life 50 years down the road when they retire, because it feels like so far down the road, right?
Yes.
But the same thing is true for a mid 20-year-old to 30-year-old or mid 30s, because even at that point, you're looking at 20, 30 years yet until you retire. But here's the trick. It's um, like trying to build muscle. You have to start building muscle when you have whatever you have it is, right, manage. Because if you can't manage what you currently have, if you put a zero on your check, what makes you think you can manage that? It's like you have to flex and build the muscle of what it's like to save and defer some gratification to when you're older, because there will always be something that comes up. Mid 20s, maybe you're single. Maybe at 30, 35, you might get married, and then maybe you might have kids. Well, then maybe you want to buy a house. Then maybe you want to buy a second house, and then you want to go on a vacation. There will always be something. There will always be something for you to spend your money on. Ask anyone who's in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't think a single person would tell you, I saved too much money. I invested too much. Not a single person will say that. So it's just a matter of trying to put yourself into the vision that you want to be in, and then backwards design. And in order for you to do that, man, in your 20s, compound interest is totally on your side. You plug anything that you can do into investing, and you put that into a compound interest calculator, it's going to blow your mind. And when you've got no debt, I consider debt like an anchor. Like, are you a runner, Bertrand? You like
Yes.
to run? Okay, I think I saw you that one time. So imagine yourself going out for a 5K. And I said, okay, Bertrand, we're doing a 5K, but I want you to put a 40-pound weighted vest on. I want you to put ankle weights on, and I want you to carry a 40-pound dumbbell in each hand. And then I'm going to run without anything on because I'm debt free. How tough would that be, right? But people don't realize they get so used to debt, it becomes normal. But if I had said, okay, Bertrand, now take that weighted vest off, drop those 40-pound dumbbells, you're going to be like, man, this is easy. I feel so light and free. That's what it feels like being debt free. The average person in America is broke and in debt up to their eyeballs. Do not be average. And so that's my encouragement for someone in that age bracket.
I love that. I'm 100% with you. I hate average. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't be a 1% man and be average, right? Like,
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
So, and that's that. But when you say, and I want to touch on investments real quick, because I know our time is running short, but when you say investments, what kind of investments are you talking about that we should be looking at in our 20s? Is it 401ks? Is it stocks? Is it bonds, Forex? Where should we be putting our money?
I think the first thing that you should look at is, what does your employer offer in a 401k? So if they offer a match, it's a no-brainer. That is free money. I would invest immediately up to the match. So if your employer is like, okay, we're going to match dollar for dollar up to 6%, you've got to match that. Go up to 6%. I'd fill that. Think of that as like a bucket. Fill that bucket first, and then move over to what's called a Roth IRA, because that allows you to put money in that's already been taxed. So when you retire, the government's not going to touch any of that. And so you kind of want to look at that and you want to max that out. Think of that as your second bucket. And then your third bucket for investing, you could just simply go to something like a Vanguard or any sort of robo-advisor, and for, 0.05% fee, get into an index fund. Just a simple S&P Standard & Poor's 500 index fund. I'd kind of look at it as like an approach. It's like you're maximizing all the different levers available to you. And that's how I do it.
Perfect. I love that. So this money, this is that long-term savings, right?
Yep. Don't even think about it. Think about it a long time from now. Just put it away.
You. Okay. And then so short term, what is the fastest way, let's say for somebody to save 5 or even 10K right away? Like what do you think is the fastest way? And the I don't want to say the best vehicle, but if you were 20 again, what would you say was the fastest way for somebody to save that 5 to 10K again?
I would look at, first of all, I think you got to be on a budget, or you have to track your spending somehow. So if I looked at your budget or anyone's budget, I could find easily hundreds of dollars a month that's just being leaked out of the budget. So clean your budget up, look at your spending, and ask yourself, do I really need to spend that? Do I really need to take that vacation right now? Or could I wait until I've got an emergency fund saved up and then do it? So I think first it's looking at, okay, where's all my money going? I guarantee you will find a way to optimize your budget. So think of that first, and then the other lever to pull is your income. So I've got a buddy who does, you're probably familiar with Instacart, right?
Yes.
The dude does Instacart for 12 hours a week, and he makes $800 a week. 12 hours a week on his side, and all he does is shop for groceries. So he shops for groceries for someone for 12 hours, and he makes almost $1,000 a week extra. So you don't have to do that very long. So again, when you want to look at a season of life, if I had said, Bertrand, for 3-4 months, can you do some tough things to save 10 grand? The answer is probably, yeah, I could do that. So recontextualize, okay, for a season of life, a couple months, I'm going to reduce my expenses and I'm going to increase my income. And then I'm done. I don't need to keep doing that. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So that's what I would do if I was in my 20s, and I would, like an animal, find all the ways to save it as fast as I can. Sell some stuff, man. You can go on a Facebook Marketplace and you can buy things and resell it and make money off of reselling. You go to garage sales, man. You can do a whole bunch of creative things to stash some cash in a hurry.
That is true. I actually just sold my first thing on Facebook Marketplace yesterday.
Okay.
$50. Someone else was giving away a dresser. I was like, oh, I'll take it. I took a mattress, a dresser, and a couch. I put them all on there, and then someone hit me up like, hey, I'll come take it. And then boom, sold it, $50. I was like, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
I need someone to come take this now too, you know? So
I mean, it's easy. There's, I mean, really, we live in a day and age where we don't have many excuses. You can hustle. Dude, by today, you can have an LLC and you can start selling things. So there really isn't an excuse, and you can do anything for a period of time like that.
True. So true. So, but I want to give you some time right now, Kyle, to talk about your program. You have a great program that I know I'm going to be joining in terms of paying off debt. And I think one of the biggest things you said is the accountability piece when it comes to paying off debt and then getting control of your money as well. Why is accountability so important with so much vast information out there that people can go to?
It's similar. I would liken it to, if you wanted to get in shape, you wanted to put some muscle on, you'd probably go to the gym and hire a personal trainer, right? And why is that? Because, well, you seem to lift more and you lift heavier, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do because someone's going to hold your feet to the fire because you said you were going to. So I kind of look at it as like, it's like the same thing as a personal trainer for getting in shape. I'm kind of like a personal trainer for your money and for your finances. That's what accountability is, because I'm going to work with you or work with anyone who is like, man, I'm interested in that. And I'm going to say, okay, here's your budget. This is what you said you're going to do. You and I are going to touch base in a month, and I'm going to see how you said you're going to do. I'm going to see if you did the things you said you were going to do. But if you didn't have that accountability, man, you really easily could just slide your way out of not doing those, especially if you're single. If you're single, you've got no one who's looking at your budget, who's holding you accountable. My wife and I go through our budget. And so I can't just go out and buy a brand new set of golf clubs without her knowing about it. You know what I mean? But if I'm single, I'm like, I could go buy some new golf clubs and I don't got to tell anyone about it. Yes. So that's why it's really important to have accountability, especially as a single.
No, I totally agree with you 100%. And now I know you also have another event that you're going to be having in October, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little more about that. Why are you having this event? What is it? What does it include? And why is it important for men to get involved?
Thanks for asking. So in October, what I'm doing is I'm holding a really fun, like a bucket list experience with really good networking. What I found in my corporate career is I chased success. I didn't chase significance and fulfillment and impact. And so eventually I ended up getting the success, the big paychecks, the corner office, all that stuff. And I was completely burned out and not at all happy. So I said to myself, all right, that's how I felt, there's got to be guys that are also feeling that way. So what I did last year, I started to create these experiences for men to step into, show them work-life rhythm, have them connect and network with other like-minded men, and do really cool stuff. So I had helicopters that came to the resort. I surprised the guys. They jumped into it. We went up to the North Shore of Minnesota. They got to see some waterfalls from like 600 feet up. Super cool stuff. We did dog sledding earlier this year. And in October, I'm doing a golf experience, and we're going to pit a race car also. And I found that like when you get men, really anyone, but when you get men like out of their comfort zone, they get new ideas, they think differently, they're relaxed, they aren't stressed out, and all of our walls and our ego comes down as men. And then we just start hanging out and say, hey man, this is what I'm going through. And someone's like, yeah, so am I. I feel that. You know what I mean? So
yes.
we're gonna golf, because the average round of golf is 4 to 4.5 hours. So if you can get the right people together for 4 to 4.5 hours, they will mastermind on their own. It's really, really cool if you're intentional. So we're going to be at Pinehurst in North Carolina. We're going to do some good golf. We're going to do some bucket list stuff like that. I can't give away all the secrets because that's part of the secret sauce. But yes. that's a big part of my business, is just creating bucket list experiences for men to connect.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm about to get some more information on that too as well. And last but not least, what is your podcast name, and where can people find more about you as well?
Cool. Yeah. The podcast name is Reaching Beyond. And I'm you and I connected on Instagram. I respond to anyone who connects. I love to connect with people. It's part of my business, man. So I like to connect. So reach out. It's just Kyle_Depiesse. Facebook is the same, Kyle Depiesse. Website is Kyle Depiesse. So if you get my name right, you'll find me anywhere and everywhere.
Okay. Appreciate it. Kyle, I got to say, I thank you so much for dropping this knowledge. And definitely I'm going to have all the links to your courses, especially to your podcast as well. And I'm going to make sure I tell the group to go in there, leave you a 5-star review as well, because this is great knowledge. Kyle, thank you for coming on again.
Oh man. Thank you, Bertrand. I appreciate it, man. It's been fun to get to know you.
All right, Kyle. Later.
All right.
Thank you, my friend, for tuning into today's episode. This means so much to us over here at the 1% Man community. Now, we want to extend a hand of gratitude to you. So I have a free gift for you. All you have to do is go to www.the1percentman.com/podcast gift. This is an exclusive gift for listeners that tune into our podcast. So go over there, get that free gift as well. And now I have 2 simple acts of you. 1, hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment and a 5-star review, because that helps us to see what you love about the podcast, and that helps us to bolster up in the rankings so more people can find us and listen to this pertinent information that we have for men of today's age. Last but not least, I want you to go back and listen to this podcast. Find just one thing that you can implement in your life today so you can move forward. Remember, progress over perfection. And till next time, my friend, your legacy starts today.